Today is Tuesday, April 25th. We'll tell you about President Biden's big announcement planned for today and the two big-name cable news hosts that both suddenly got pulled off the air. Plus, calls for book bans set a new record last year, what researchers recently found about the way we age, and which star NFL quarterback is heading to a new team for the first time. Those stories and more news to know today, coming up. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. Today, President Biden is expected to set the stage for what could be a historic rematch with former President Trump. Biden is reportedly set to announce his re-election campaign today, exactly 4 years after entering the 2020 presidential race. And just like he did 4 years ago, Biden is expected to formally launch the campaign with a video to supporters outlining his vision. Since the president is already the oldest person ever elected to the job, he will also likely have to answer voter questions about whether he'll be fit for office. At the end of a theoretical second term, Biden would be 86 years old. But so far, he's brushed aside those concerns, telling voters to, quote, watch me. Of course, the most high-profile politician who's already announced a 2024 run is former President Trump. But even more people are expected to jump into the race soon, to be continued. Starting today, former President Trump is facing a jury trial in Manhattan. It's a civil case involving long-standing allegations by advice columnist E. Jean Carroll. She's accusing the president of raping her in a department store dressing room back in the 90s. It's allowed to go to trial now because New York State recently opened a legal window for people who say they were sexually assaulted to sue their alleged abusers, no matter how long ago the assault happened. In this case, Trump says it did not happen and that Carroll made the story up for publicity. Trump is not required to attend the trial, but he could decide to testify in his own defense if he wants to. Carroll has said she'll be there every day. Jury selection is set to begin today. The whole trial is expected to last 1 or 2 weeks. Of course, this is just the latest legal hurdle for the former president. Two of the most popular hosts in cable news both got the boot from their competing networks this week. Fox News dropped Tucker Carlson, and CNN parted ways with Don Lemon. And in both cases, the firings seem to come as a surprise. Carlson's last show was just on Friday, which he ended by saying, quote, we'll be back Monday. That's the last public statement he made. Lemon responded on Twitter, saying he was stunned to hear the news from his agent and suggested there were, quote, some larger issues at play. Fox News and CNN did not give exact reasonings for their firings, but both hosts have been wrapped up in some controversy lately. Carlson's departure came the week after Fox News settled Dominion Voting Systems' defamation lawsuit. In the pretrial, Dominion presented texts from Carlson that took aim at former President Trump and Fox management, which really clashed with his on-air persona. One of his former producers is also suing the network for discrimination. As for Lemon, Variety published a report earlier this month claiming he made offensive comments about women on air and was allegedly inappropriate toward his female colleagues behind the scenes. So far, neither network has named a permanent replacement for either host, and neither host has said where they might go next. Book banning efforts are on the rise. A new report from the American Library Association found there were 1,269 attempts to censor books and other resources in U.S. libraries in 2022. That's nearly double the year before and is a 20-year record. More than 2,500 unique titles face scrutiny overall, and the Library Association says many of them were books focused on or written by LGBTQ people and people of color. Some of the most challenged titles include Gender Queer by Maya Kobabe, All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson, and The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. The challenges come from elected officials, parents, and conservative groups who argue the titles are inappropriate for children and students because of sexual explicitness, LGBTQ content, and profanity. On the other side are groups like the American Library Association itself, who says it wants to recognize all of the brave authors challenging the status quo while calling on readers to, quote, show your commitment to the freedom to read. You'll find a link to the full list of the top 10 most challenged books in 2022 in today's episode notes. All right, well, there's a massive space rock the size of the Eiffel Tower speeding by Earth tomorrow at about 40,000 miles per hour. But once again, there's no need to panic. Astronomers say that while that asteroid will come closer than usual, it'll still be 1.5 million miles away from us, which is more than 6 times the distance from Earth to the moon. You won't be able to see this space rock with the naked eye. It'll only be visible with larger telescopes. But NASA will be keeping an eye on it and any other large space rocks that get a little too close for comfort. You might remember NASA's so-called DART mission tested how it might knock a big space rock off its path toward Earth and called that test a success. All right, we have much more news for you still coming up. But first, I want to let you know about our partner, Soul Organics. I personally love their sheets and have been sleeping on them for years now. And now, in honor of Earth Day over the weekend, since that's an important holiday to the company, they have announced their 100% organic cotton linens are an extra 40% off through Wednesday. Soul Organics linen is made with the finest certified European flax in the world. And I can speak from experience that Soul Organic sheets are light and breathable during the summer and temperature regulating in the winter. Plus, the company only uses suppliers that are certified experts in sustainable fibers. All Soul Organics products have free shipping in the U.S. and a 30-night free trial. I've created a special link for you to use that will help support the show. And when you use the code EARTH, you'll get an extra 40% off on organic cotton linens. The sale ends tomorrow, though, so go now to thenewsworthy.com/sheets and use the code EARTH. Again, that's thenewsworthy.com/sheets to get soft, breathable, organic sheets for this spring, summer, and beyond. How old you look or feel might not have as much to do with how long you've been on Earth, but more what your biological age is. And it turns out that kind of aging might be reversible. Researchers can track biological age by looking at someone's cells and tissues. And in a recent study, they examined what stress does to it. They studied people who were either having major surgery, giving birth, or receiving intensive care for severe COVID-19 infections. And they noticed the biomarkers of aging spiked right after the stressful time and then went back down after a few weeks. Another interesting finding was the COVID-19 patients who were given a certain kind of anti-inflammatory had even faster recovery time. So study authors say there's a chance this research could one day lead to some kind of anti-aging drug. The researchers do say their study had limitations, though. For example, it's not clear how this short-term aging and recovery pattern may or may not affect long-term aging. More research will be needed to get that answer. The American marijuana industry is bringing in a lot of money now that most states have legalized either recreational or medical weed. A new report found Americans legally spent roughly $30 billion on the drug last year. For comparison, that's more than other products like beer, opioid medications, and chocolate. Still, even with all this money going into legal marijuana, economists say 3/4 of weed sales still happen through illegal dealers, not licensed retailers. At least that's the case for now. But new state laws are still being considered and new dispensaries are still getting set up. The cannabis website MJ Biz Daily analyzed several databases and consulted with economists and estimated by 2028, legal marijuana sales will bring in about $57 billion. And that means it will even surpass the tobacco industry by a lot. With all of that said, there's also been a new push for more investigation into exactly how marijuana changes someone's health or behavior. This week, Apple declared victory in a high-profile, long-running legal battle over its App Store. You may remember, the company Epic Games, which is behind the popular video game Fortnite, sued Apple a few years ago. Epic said it was not fair that the only way to reach people who own the 1.5 billion iPhones in the world is to go through the Apple App Store. And just to be listed, companies have to agree to pay Apple up to 30% of their app's digital sales. Epic argued that system amounts to a monopoly of the market. Well, flash forward to this week, and a federal appeals court ruled Apple does not have a monopoly, agreeing with an earlier ruling from a lower court. But it also said Apple should not stop app developers from directing customers to payment methods outside of the App Store if they want, like on their own websites. So when there's an option, it could be up to customers to decide where they want to make purchases. Already, Epic says it's still thinking about what to do with that new power. Another closely watched legal case is playing out in court this week. In this one, a jury will weigh in on a lawsuit that accuses pop artist Ed Sheeran of copying soul singer Marvin Gaye. It claims Sheeran's Grammy-winning ballad, Thinking Out Loud, is a little too much like Gaye's classic, Let's Get It On. The heirs of Ed Townsend are suing, since he's the songwriter and producer who collaborated with Gaye on that one. Specifically, this case is over a sequence of 4 chords that progress in a certain pattern. Sheeran's lawyers say the chords are generic building blocks, fair game for any musicians. Basically, that there are only so many notes, so coincidences happen. But the people suing say this exact rhythmic pattern is original enough that it should be protected by copyright. Now, it will be up to a jury to decide. Sheeran is expected to testify soon, less than 2 weeks before he plans to release a new album and begin an extensive North American stadium tour. An NFL player who's often referred to as one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time is now moving teams for the first time in his 18-year career. Aaron Rodgers was drafted to the Green Bay Packers back in 2005, and he's been there ever since, winning the league's Most Valuable Player award 4 times and leading the team to a Super Bowl win. But reports say he has not been happy with how the team is doing and how he hasn't had as much impact as he'd like. So now, as part of a blockbuster trade, Rodgers is headed to the New York Jets. The Packers' general manager called the news unfortunate and disappointing, while the Jets posted videos online of fans cheering in excitement. In exchange for Rodgers, the Jets are trading some draft picks with the Packers. We'll see how good that deal really is when the NFL draft begins in just 2 days. That's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Trivia Tuesday, when we ask a different trivia question every week. But first, do you have a business or event that you want to promote right here on The Newsworthy? Or perhaps you direct your company's marketing spend? Well, we would love to work with you. We usually work with an ad agency and have our ad spots booked out months in advance. So right now, since we have some openings, I wanted to let you, our audience, know in case there's a partnership that makes sense. Or if you know someone else who would love to jump on this opportunity, especially because we are offering a discount if you book in the month of May. So if you're interested in learning more, reach out to us and let's talk. We can provide more information and see if it's a good fit. Just email team@thenewsworthy.com or use the contact link at the bottom of our website, thenewsworthy.com. Okay, now back to Trivia Tuesday. Today's trivia question is, what percentage of the Earth's wildlife is found in the ocean? You can play along with us in our weekly roundup email that comes out each Friday. Simply sign up to get it at thenewsworthy.com/email or find the link in today's episode notes. As for last week's trivia question, who was the first author to use a type machine or typewriter in writing a manuscript? The answer is Mark Twain. Twain wrote of that typewriter in his autobiography, saying he bought it in 1871 for $125. That would be like $3,000 in today's money. He had mixed feelings about it, first saying he liked how fast it printed, kept the ink from smudging, and saved paper. But then, 2 years later, he said it was full of devilish defects. Still, Twain did use the typewriter to write his entire manuscript for Life on the Mississippi in 1882. Then eventually, he sold what he called his newfangled typing machine. It's not clear what happened to it after that, but Twain's association with the machinery lives on. All right, thank you so much for listening today. We'll be back with another news roundup tomorrow. Until then, have a great day.